Hello and welcome to Radiance Revealed, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, fitness enthusiast, nutrition expert, and global explorer that over the years has uncovered that your skin is a true representation of your internal health. Each week, we will chat with leading health, wellness, and even spiritual experts who will reveal secrets to true health and vitality. My goal is to help you change small habits to give you the power to create a more balanced, aligned, and elevated version of yourself. Now let's dive in. So welcome, Dr. Carolina. I want to talk to you today about the new technology that you've helped create and what the products can do and how they work and why they're so different from really anything else on the market. So if you could talk a little bit about your background and what drove you into creating the OneSkin brand.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jen. So I am a scientist by training. I was fascinated by science from a young age, and I always thought that I would work in science to find a cure for a specific disease. And so I got my major in biochemistry and my PhD in stem cell biology and tissue engineering. And that's when I learned how to grow tissues in the lab and basically replicate human tissues in the lab. So out of this expertise, I joined with three other colleagues. We are all from Brazil when we were finishing our PhDs. And we started growing skins in the lab and really replicate the skin aging. And initially what we were doing, we were testing products that were in the market called, claiming to be anti-aging to measure if they could actually reverse the skin's biological age. So we can measure the age of the skin by reading like the skin's epigenetic or the skin's like DNA signature. And we can basically determine like the skin's age, like this skin is 40 years old. And then we can test any product out there and measure if they could actually reduce the age of the skin. What we found was really interesting, and a lot of products they could not like reduce the age of the skin. Some make your skin to look better, more on the superficial layers, but a lot of them were also causing some damage, some toxicity, and they were making the skin look worse, like from a histological and cellular standpoint, than the skin that was not treated. So basically, we saw that, okay, there is so many products out there claiming to be anti-aging, but they are not targeting aging itself. They are targeting the symptoms of aging. They are trying to make your skin smoother and look like fresher, but they are not addressing the fundamental driver of aging. And because we're scientists, we knew how much the science has evolved in the past like 10, 15 years. We knew that there was a better way to tackle aging. So we shift our approach from testing products to actually go and search for new molecules that could target the root cause of aging and promote this cellular age reversal. So we spent 4 years testing over 900 peptides until we found one that actually worked in reducing the age of the skin. And that's OS1 peptide, the main proprietary ingredient that we have behind our products that we validated to reverse the age of the skin in 2.5 years in the skins that we treated in the lab. And now we are running clinical studies in humans to measure that we can actually, reduce the age of the skin in humans. So in a nutshell, that's how we got to what we're doing today.
Okay, that's so interesting. And I love your background. It's interesting because I often get approached to help formulate products. And while I can advise on certain ingredients that I like to help formulate products, I always tell people we have to work with a cosmetic chemist, somebody who can actually make these products penetrate the skin to get to where they need to be in the skin and in the right combinations so it's elegant and effective and not countering each other. The first thing I have so many questions. The first one I wanted to ask you is, tell me about the skin model that you've created. Does it include epidermis and all of the layers of the epidermis as well as dermis? Like, I'm curious as to the skin.
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, like we our goal is to get as close as possible to the human skin. So we do replicate the dermal layer and the epidermal, and the epidermal has all the four different layers, including the stratum corneum. That is really important to mimic the barrier of the skin. So when we have a histology, a transversal section of the skin comparing a human skin to our skin models, they are really similar. You can see that the layers, they align with each other, and that allow us to really have a very good prediction model to test in the lab and kind of predict how these products will behave in a human skin. Obviously, the model has a few limitations that we can only keep it in culture in the lab like for 7 days. So we can only test like a certain product for a short period of time. But you can really detect early on like toxicity. You can already see upregulation of collagen or other, downregulation of other genes associated with aging, inflammation. So it's super interesting. And what we can do is also to show a skin that it's mimicking like a very young skin, like a neonatal baby skin, up to a very aged skin. So we collect cells from donors of different ages, so we can mimic like a baby skin, 30-year-old skin, 40, 50, up to 90 years old skin, and we can clearly see how the skin is changing over time. So the epidermal layer becomes thinner. The cells start to the epidermal layer starts to kind of detach from the derm, like the junction between the dermal and the epidermis is not as strong anymore. And so it's so beautiful to see. And then what we do is to treat like the aged skin, and then we see how much we can get it closer to a younger skin. So we can see that again, the epidermal layer increases in thickness, and the whole organization of the cells look like better. And obviously, we measure the protein levels, collagen, and other genes. But it's a great model to, assess efficacy, toxicity of any new product before you go to clinical studies, which are very expensive and, take a lot of time.
Okay, so you answered my next question, which is wonderful, which was basically how actually do you measure the skin's age, actually? Let's dive a little deeper into that. So when you see someone with 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-year-old skin, how is that different from someone in their teens or 20s or 30s, just looking at the skin in the skin model? How does it differentiate?
Yeah, so we can clearly see again the epidermal layer. It's thicker, and so the barrier is stronger. We can also see more presence of collagen, hyaluronic acid, and genes associated with aging and inflammation. They are low in younger skin, and they start to go up with aging, unfortunately. The other thing that we measure that's not visually, it's again the biological age. So, and by the way that we do that is by measuring like the epigenetic profile. So, and our epigenetics are basically influenced by our lifestyle. So, the epigenetic status basically says which genes are on and off. And so we have the same genome throughout our lives. But unfortunately, the good genes are turning off as we age, and the bad genes are turning on. So we can measure this and use an algorithm that in the end it gives us a number, a biological age. So your skin, for example, you can be 40 years old, your skin can be biologically 35, or it can be 40 something, depending on your lifestyle, right? So if you have, if you're a lot of sun exposure, smoking, and all of those, not good habits that can help your skin to age faster. And we can quantify this through this epigenetics marker. And then what it's give us is a quantitative measure of an efficacy of a product. Because today, how the products are measured is based on consumer perceptions. Okay, you can also do clinical grade evaluation, and you can measure with instruments, but all of them are not so precise, and this biological age gives you like a more accurate evaluation of the efficacy of a product. So if you can measure that a product can reduce your age in a few years, that's really meaningful.
So you're able to, okay, so I play around with like True Diagnostic and some of these other biological aging markers, right? So are you seeing that what someone does in their lifestyle from the epigenetic standpoint will also affect their skin more than just topical, correct? But you're
Yes.
still able to measure the biological, not chronological age of the skin in your skin model, or do you have a
Yes.
testing method? How do you do that?
So we actually developed a skin clock because through that diagnostic, basically they built their clock or they licensed from an university, and they are evaluating your systemic biological age. They measure through blood or saliva. We trained an algorithm using only skin samples. So we use like over 500 of skin samples, and then we determine how the epigenetics of the skin changes with age. And now, anytime that we have a new product that we want to test, we can use this algorithm to determine the age of the skin and then how much it varies depending on a certain treatment.
That's interesting. And then is it a skin biopsy or how do you take it?
Yeah, so we need a skin biopsy, unfortunately. That's what doesn't make it like consumer friendly. But for clinical studies, we can still evaluate the skin's age. It becomes obviously a little bit more challenging, more expensive, but we are running right now a clinical study with like 23 participants over 6 to 12 months. So we believe that to change the biological age of the skin, you need a longer period. Everyone that promised 2 weeks and you're gonna, be young, we are not in that line. And so we are now analyzing the data, but the preliminary data already show again the decrease of markers related to aging and cellular senescence. That's like the main process that our peptide targets. So we can already see that decrease in 12 months with the use of the product, and now we are quantifying the age of the skin.
Okay, so I'm fascinated because I always think when I talk to people or if I see people in the office, I see the patterns of our skin and what's exposed to UV radiation, right? So if we do a skin biopsy from just the preauricular or the area in front of my ear, it's going to be older than if I think, maybe I'm wrong. You tell me, than if I take it from the upper inner part of my arm
Yeah.
where that's more my aging without the UV radiation where it hasn't seen the sun. So where are you taking the samples from? What size are they? This is just a science
I know,
question.
I love these are all great questions. So the first study we took from the outer arm because was a little easier. Now we are planning another study that we're gonna take from this area of the ear because it's closer to your face, so it's mimicking better the skin of your face. It's a little more challenging than the outer arm. And so for we want a sun exposed area because for us was more relevant. So we started with the outer arm, and then we're gonna do another one with the this area of the ear.
Okay. Yeah. And for those of you listening, don't be alarmed with this. It's like a little, probably a cookie cutter, like a punch biopsy.
Yeah, it's a punch biopsy. It's like 2, 3 millimeters. I don't think you even get a stitch. I think it's very, yeah.
Yeah. And it just hides in front of your ear and it gives you actually a little bit of a lift in your cheek. I've removed so many cancers from there. Okay. This is really, really interesting. Okay. So do you, I guess, I'm wondering why you chose to look at peptides out of all the ingredients that exist in science. And I did see that I was so glad to see you at the Science of Skincare Summit and be
Yes.
in the dermatology world because I'm also in the health optimization biohacking world. And it's nice to see that people are merging because
Yeah.
why not learn from each other, right? And it was wonderful to see you there. And did you give the presentation?
My co-founder did, Alessandra. Yes.
Yeah, Alessandra. Yeah, she did. She did a great job. And Yeah, it was nice to see you in that area. And being there, there's DNA repair enzymes, there's exosomes, there's all of these products that people are starting to get excited about. I'm wondering why you chose peptides and maybe explain what a peptide is. I did a podcast on that, but I'd love for you to explain what it is because it's a word that people throw around and maybe why all peptides are not created equally and why you chose to look at peptides and how you chose the one you did and how it works.
Yeah. So essentially, peptides are pieces of a protein, like a chain of amino acids, usually up to 50 amino acids. But for the skin, you needed to use a small peptide that can actually penetrate the skin barrier. So that's very important. Our peptide has 10 amino acids, and one of the studies that we did was to validate that actually gets into the dermal layer. But peptides are essentially these small pieces of proteins that can get into the cell and can give signals to the cell. So can induce the cells to behave in a certain way. And so there are a lot of peptides in the market, some of them, claiming to induce collagen. I think a lot of the questions that I have, it's again, does this peptide penetrate the skin? Does this peptide is it stable at a different temperatures at a different periods? Because this product's going to be on the shelf for 1-2 years, and so how long you can maintain the peptide stable in a product. And so for us, we like peptides because they are a biological molecule, so they are already similar to what you have in your body. And for us, we want something that was completely novel, so we started with a proprietary library of peptides, collaborating with an university in Brazil. And so initially we tested 200 peptides that were antimicrobial peptides. And then we got a few ones that worked well for assessments of reducing the load of cellular senescence, or the load of old cells, aging cells in the skin. And then what we did was to use an algorithm and create another 800 peptides. And then we did a second round of testing, and that's when we found OS1. So OS1 came after like 2-3 years of research, and we found that it can reduce up to 40-50% the load of aging cells in the skin. And so it's very specific in a way that it addresses aging, because it's targeting these aging cells that are the ones that are really spreading the inflammation and causing collagen degradation, which will lead to sagging, wrinkles. And there was no other peptide in the market validated to target these, aging senescent cells. Um, so once we found this peptide, we needed to validate, safety. So this peptide should not cause any toxicity, irritation. So we did all the safety studies that are recommended by FDA, and then we needed to validate the efficacy not only in the lab but also in humans. So we did all the studies that we do in the skins to validate that it reduces the age of the skin, increases collagen at similar levels that retinoic acid does, but without the inflammation, the irritation, and so it's a very gentle molecule and way to address aging. And then we did the clinical studies to validate in humans what would be the benefits that this peptide would promote. So we actually ran like split face study, in which we had like half of the face of the participants with the full formula and half of the face with the full formula minus the peptide. So really trying to understand the incremental effect of the peptide. And what we saw is that the side with the peptide had the more significant improvement in fine lines, wrinkles, and there was a significant improvement in the barrier of the skin only on the side of the peptide, not in the side that had the formula with all the active ingredients but didn't have the peptide. So really showing that this peptide, by again working internally within by targeting these aging cells, it's really helping your skin to um, rejuvenate from inside improve your skin barrier and behave like younger skin, but as a consequence, also look and younger.
Okay, so I'm just going to translate because I know you're a scientist. So for those of you listening, and if you could see me on YouTube, so basically what Dr. Catalina is saying is that this product, the OS01 face moisturizer, it's pretty creamy. And we find that in studies that if you put a moisturizer on someone's skin, it's going to look better and the fine lines and wrinkles are going to look temporarily better just from the hydration component. So in this study, what they did is they gave the same exact formula on both sides of the face, but one side had the OSO1 peptide, and that side was remarkably improved compared to just having the formula. So it wasn't a false sense of improvement like we often see when people are seeing results 2 or 3 weeks later just from hydration, because we know, especially where I live in Arizona, if we just hydrate and moisturize the skin, we're going to see improvement. But it's temporary. It's not at a cellular level. There's no longevity to it. Okay, so you mentioned cellular senescence. Can you break down what senescent cells are for the skin and to the body?
Yeah. So when we were studying aging, we saw that a lot of research was going on in understanding the role of senescent cells in our whole body in driving aging. So senescent cells are basically old cells that have accumulated a lot of damage and they stop functioning well. So that wouldn't be a problem if they just stick around, but the problem is that they start secreting inflammatory signals that induce the cells around that are healthy to become senescent as well. So we usually compare them with like a rotten apple in a bunch, like that senescent cell is like spoiling the good cells. And so these cells accumulate as we age in different areas of our body. So they accumulate in our joints, and this is associated with like our osteoarthritis. They accumulate in our hearts, and this is associated with the cardiovascular diseases. And they also accumulate in our skin. Our skin is the organ that's most exposed to environmental stressors. UV damage is one of the main drivers of cellular senescence. That's also how we replicate, uh, skin aging in the lab. And so we know that our hypothesis was that if we can, decrease the load of senescent cells, we could rejuvenate the skin because you are eliminating or reducing the number of the old cells, but you are allowing the healthy cells to replicate. So in some way, you are just addressing the ones that are causing damage. You are not disturbing the healthy cells. And there are amazing studies in different areas showing that targeting senescent cells has a significant impact in aging. So we thought that this would be a new way to target skin aging, and we've been pretty impressed with the results that we have found. Um, and so our peptide is shown to reduce, as I said, up to 40 to 50% the level of senescent cells in the skins in the lab. Unfortunately, it's really hard to measure in humans, but at least we have this validation that the peptide works by, primarily targeting those senescent cells.
Do we have OSO1 in our cells naturally, or is this something like?
Yeah, it's a completely novel peptide. It does have around 70% homology with other peptides in our body, but not 100%. So it's a it's a new peptide.
And you just discovered it?
Yeah, we discovered using machine learning and this algorithm that helped us create new variations of the initial peptide that we were studying. Yeah, because of that, it's completely novel in nature in our body as well.
That's so interesting. Okay, so have you looked into whether or not it works better with other peptides or alone?
Yeah, that's a study that we're investigating as we develop new formulas. We are always testing the combination of our peptide with other ingredients. So usually we start with a basic formula with our peptide, and then we start adding additional actives. And as you said, a lot of times not adding more actives doesn't mean to have better benefits. A lot of times you're gonna over kind of activate the skin, so the skin can show some signs of irritation, and not always you see better benefits. So for our eye cream, for example, we do have other peptides that that complement OS1. So for each formula, we test a combination of different actives to get to the final formulation that has the most synergistic effect, that in the end we have um, better, outcomes than just with the peptide. But it's a very rigorous process that we test individual actives and seeing how the final formula performs.
And then time, time is always the hardest part because to stimulate collagen, it takes 3 to 6 months, and we can be here forever while you test everything before you actually launch a product. So it's a process and evolution. Okay, so I want to go into more practical. How do you use the product? So what I have in front of me is I have I'm calling it the essential moisturizer. So it's the essential moisturizer, and I do like to use a vitamin C in the form of sodium ascorbyl phosphate or THD ascorbate, and then I apply this. Is that something Are there products you should not use with the moisturizer, or is there a certain way of applying it? I tend to go thinnest to thickest, but I know sometimes with growth factors, like something acidic is not recommended. So we don't have a lot of research on ingredients that don't work together or how they interact. And you kind of touched on this, like more is sometimes not better. And I see this in the biohacking world where people do so much that they're not doing hormesis. They're actually causing damage to their body
Mhm.
because they're overdoing everything so
Yes.
much. So that's the last thing we want to do with our skincare is make your skin confused and angry. So when we're looking at the OS01 products, like what is the right way to do it if somebody already has a routine? Like, what are the do's and don'ts?
Yeah. A- at Initially, we don't have any uh, recommendation against any product or product because it's very gentle. It should work well with most product. Obviously, if you already have a very complex routine and you are adding a new product, you need to understand it and see if your skin, your skin is reacting. Maybe you need to swap one of the products. But our product itself, it's very gentle. It could be combined with like vitamin C, retinols, glycolic acid, other exfoliants, and actually has this very soothing and anti-inflammatory effect as well that can help calm your skin depending on other actives that can be a little bit more irritative. So we it works well with vitamin C. You can apply after vitamin C. Most of the studies that we do, we apply first just because we want to make sure that the peptide is getting to the dermal layer. But if a serum it's very light, we don't, think that this should impair the penetration of the peptide.
Okay. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that I'm able to tolerate the retinol, and I use a liposomal form of retinol, so it's not very irritating. I've been able to use it every night where I wasn't before since I've started the product. The other thing I wanted to mention is you have a body. You
Yeah.
buy a body moisturizer, which I think is amazing because we often overlook the body. So tell me a little bit about this and how it differs from the facial moisturizer.
Yeah. So, for us, and aligned with our mission of like improve everyone's skin health, the second product that we wanted to develop was a body lotion. We don't want to just treat the skin of your face. So we know that your skin is your largest organ, and as we age, we want to make sure that your whole skin is strong, resilient, and maintains like functional, because we want to protect our body. And a lot of us really, neglect our body until we get to, maybe closer to your 40s or 50s, and you start to experience menopause and the skin starts to get thin and crepey. So for us, it's really, to help people that are maybe already there and want to address that thin, crepey skin, and you can recover some of the resilience and strengthen your skin again. So we have amazing. The body lotion is one that a lot of people are really obsessed with because it's not as heavy, and it's like very hydrating, but not greasy at all. So everyone can feel good applying it. And the improvements in crepey skin has been like really remarkable. And obviously for people that want to again prevent and just treat your body early on, that's a great product as well. In terms of ingredients, so it has different ingredients of the face product. It does contain the peptide in a lower concentration because our body is less exposed to damage, so you don't require the same amount as you have for the face. But also has ceramides. It has a mushroom extract that's really good for hydration, way better than hyaluronic acid. It has sulforaphane, that's a very potent antioxidant molecule. So it's a beautiful formula. That's one that I definitely recommend everyone to try because I haven't seen anyone that doesn't like this product.
Which mushroom extract is it?
The Centerella,
Asiatica?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's a new study. I think you probably saw this at the Science of Skincare. There's the new product coming out with mandelic acid and Centella asiatica that helps with dermatoporosis. So we're going to see a lot more of go-to cola. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
So, okay, the only complaint I have about this is the bottle isn't big
I
enough.
know.
It's almost empty. But the other thing I want everyone to hear is that it's free of fragrance, essential oils, sulfates, silicones, colorants, acrylates, and drying alcohols, which is a big deal because a lot of times I hear patients will say they're applying moisturizer, but they're just becoming more irritated, and it's because you have to look at what things don't contain as much as you have to see what they do contain nowadays.
100%. Yeah, for us, we are very thoughtful of the list of, potential irritants that we avoid. And that's also why we are certified by the National Eczema Foundation and also for the Skin Safe products. That's another company that evaluates how safe is your product, and they do very meticulous analysis. So for us, again, cause no harm. It's kind of, the number one rule.
Absolutely. Okay, are there any other products I'm missing? Because these are the three I have.
Yeah, I think it's just worth mentioning the eye product, why we decided to develop that one. So in our studies and evaluating the skin's biological age, we found that the skin around our eyes, just under or above our eyes, was like 20 to 30 years older than the skin around our temples and cheeks. And we all see that because the skin, it's thinner and shows the signs of aging faster, but we didn't know how fast this skin was aging comparing to the rest of your face. And so this inspired us to create a very specific formula for the eye area that needed to be more potent, but also at the same time very gentle because it's a very delicate skin. So the way that we develop this formula, we actually use blepharoplastic skin from, skins from the eye from blepharoplastic surgeries. And so we could like tweak a formula and test in that skin and really measure the improvement in the skin of the eye. So for that product, we increase the concentration of the peptide. We add a lot of other actives, including other peptides that can help minimize the looks of, fine lines and wrinkles, dark circles. And so the results that we had in collagen production were really incredible. It's about 2 times better than the face product for collagen production. And the clinical data also showed really impressive data for improvement in elasticity and hydration measured with instrument analysis, because for us, it's the best way to quantify those improvements. And so, just to summarize, that this is the most potent formula that we have, and was developed and tested in a very, specific way to address the signs of the skin in the eye.
This is the only one I haven't tried yet. So, but you're saying, I mean, this is more potent, the eye cream.
Yeah.
Use it all over your face. It just comes down to cost. Is that what's going on?
Can you repeat that again?
You probably could use that all over your face.
Mm.
Just more of a cost.
Yes, yes, you can. Some of our customers do that. But,
It
yeah,
actually feels very hydrating. I just put it on the
it's
back.
very hydrating, and you can apply both, like, on top of your, eyelids and then under eye as well.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that because I find over 10, 20, 30 years, people are afraid to touch all the areas around their eye as long as we're not getting things in our
Yeah,
eye. Address all the skin the same because we want it to age at the same rate as the rest of our face. We don't want to ignore certain areas of our body.
yeah, and the skin start to droop here, and then it can really, eventually compromise not only, your aesthetics, but also your vision. So, on our clinical studies, we actually saw very beautiful, like, smoothing effect on the wrinkles on the eyelids.
Oh, I'm super excited. Okay. So the only thing I'm confused about is if we're working through cellular senescence and I'm thinking about the body, right? So let's use fasting as an example. When people want to remove these senescent dead zombie cells from the body, we can fast for a day to 3 days to 5 days, and it will help the body kind of clear those out and
Yeah,
make room for the healthy cells to do their function and grow. And my knowledge on the research is that we don't want to be removing senescent cells all the time. So, do we use these products consistently or do we want to cycle them in and out to maximize removing senescent cells?
yeah, that's a great question. And the first thing is that this product doesn't necessarily um, removes the senescent cells directly. It prevents the accumulation of senescent cells and also prevents the senescent cells from secreting the inflammation that will induce more senescent cells. And by doing that and by reducing inflammation overall in your skin, your own skin can, do this cleaning effect of removing the senescent cells that are there. And so, in this way, you are never going to deplete all of the senescent cells in your skin. If you are constantly um, exposed to damage, so you'll be constantly accumulating more senescent cells. This product is preventing you to do that. It's preventing your current senescent cells from inducing the cells around it to age faster, and then will help your own body to clear those senescent cells that are already there. And your own body is not able to remove all of them, otherwise, we wouldn't age. So there is this kind of homeostasis status that we are trying to maintain with this product, but it's not what we call like a typical senolytic. A senolytic, usually you deplete senescent cells by inducing the apoptosis of the senescent cells. Our product's more what we call xenomorphic. It's basically preventing the release of the inflammation from the senescent cells.
Okay. You know what else prevents the release of SAS? Oxytocin.
Yes, that's true.
My favorite way. For human connection, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, that's really, really helpful because that's where I was the most confused. So,
Mhm.
I just want to go back into what causes cellular senescence. So, UV radiation you mentioned, and you don't have an SPF product in here. We all know, like FDA, or do you?
We do have an SPF in our line. Yeah, we have for both for the face and for the body.
Okay, great. So, can you talk about why you chose the SPF that you did and what ingredients people should look for in an SPF and why it's important to use every day, even in the winter?
Yeah. So for us, we decided to go with a mineral SPF, so it's zinc oxide, and we were able to get to a nice formula that spreads really well in your skin. It doesn't dry out your skin. We also have a tinted version. I think for your skin will blend super nicely. And we have an untinted version for those who prefer untinted, and also contains the peptide. And also contains, we actually add a lot of antioxidants, including a more stable version of vitamin C. So for those who use our SPF, you could potentially replace your vitamin C. And we have tested several serums of vitamin C in the market, comparing the antioxidant potency with our SPF, and we are very comparable to them. We're not compared to, the super high concentrated vitamin C, for example, C ferulic from SkinCeuticals. That's, a more potent one. But I would say the normal one, our SPF delivers that antioxidant effect, if you want to simplify. Um, and then the other data that we have is that by having the peptide, we not only prevent like UV damage, but we are also helping to repair existing damage in your skin. So it helps really kind of combating, the aging signs or the sun damage that you have accumulated over the years and reverse, to some extent.
So, for those of you listening, we want to attack this twofold. We want to prevent basically collagen breakdown, or in this case, damage to the skin, but we also want to help support rejuvenation and regeneration and cell renewal at the same time. So that way, we're going at both directions. We're not just attacking one. So, can you talk a little bit more about what else in our lives that we have agency over that can cause cellular senescence?
Yeah, a lot of things are related to our lifestyle, right? So we talked about, UV exposure, um, it's sleep, stress, um, the lack of exercise, the food that we eat that can drive more inflammation. So in the end, you see this cycle that if you have more inflammation in your body, you are gonna induce more senescent cells, and senescent cells will produce more inflammation. So we have the word like inflammaging, that we should all be fighting inflammaging. Um, so I would say that the basic ones are what we already know in terms of, diet, sleep, exercise. I think yeah, and stress, which is definitely a really important one, and maybe the hardest one to control. I think everything else we are able to manage if you want, if you have like the willpower.
Right? Yeah. So we all know that our skin represents our internal health, and what you do, you can't out skincare your your lifestyle, right? So, these wonderful products by OneSkin with the OSO1 peptide will definitely help give you healthy skin, but you will also have to do the rest of the work in your body. And it makes you feel better too. So it shows in your skin. Do you find that someone's skin biological age matches to their internal biological clock?
We don't have a lot of data show. It usually is different from a few years, and unfortunately, our our numbers are limited, but there is data showing again, if you are sun exposed, your chronological age will be higher. We have data showing that in skin cancer, your chronological age is higher. In people with psoriasis, your skin biological age is higher. So there are some studies showing that when there is some skin dysfunction, the biological age will be higher than your chronological age.
That makes sense because there's usually inflammation on the skin if there's inflammation and something else going on deep inside. And after practicing for 20 years, I feel that most skin cancers are more immune related. While the sun plays a role, I'm making mutations all day long here, and it's not turning into skin cancer as long as my immune system is healthy. So I'm just wondering, I'd love to see a study because I know David Sinclair, he had mentioned once, if you look younger, usually your biological clock will register as younger than your chronological clock.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if with your testing, it would be so fascinating to me to see the biological age of your skin, the biological age of your body, and if they correlate, right? So much st
Yeah. Yeah, there are so many studies that we would like to, explore, and this is one that's very interesting. If you're, having a biological age younger correlates with a younger looking, which it's kind of logical, but we want to validate that, and if that also correlates with a younger systemic biological age. I would say that it is possible to have a younger looking face and maybe not necessarily because I think a lot of things can influence. For example, if you have more weight, you can show less wrinkles, but not necessarily your body will be healthier internally. So I think there are some things that in the end we needed to this yeah to be very careful on how we evaluate it. And that's why now the best epigenetic clocks, they are taking in consideration these lifestyles interventions and not only like how your biological age and how you look.
I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for all of your information. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel that the audience needs to hear?
I think we covered it all. Yeah. Thanks for the questions, Jen. Like they were very interesting. I love, going deep, and I'm glad that you could translate to your audience. But I hope that shows a little bit of, the research behind OneSkin and how dedicated we are in only making sure that we bring like safe and effective products to our communities. So, yeah, thanks for this opportunity again.
Thank you so much. Doing this kind of science and this sort of research, it's it's not done often. There's a lot of claims out there. There's a lot of influencers talking about things that have no scientific basis at all. So it takes a lot of work for those of you who are listening to do this rigorous research to see that things are actually effective. And I just want to review the products really quickly again. So we have our facial moisturizer. This can be used with vitamin C in the morning, retinol at night. If you like to use both of those, which I do. The eye cream, which is truly a big hit. Let's look at my skin in 3 months and see how my eyes are going to change after using that. The body cream moisturizer, it's amazing, and I love moisturizers. And the sunscreen. Do you have any other products right now?
We also have a cleanser that's kind of a gentle cleanser. It does not contain the peptide. So all of our products, the main products are the 3 moisturizers, the SPF for the face and for the body, and the cleanser. So very simple for those who want to, simplify, make it easy and effective.
I think it's the year of minimalism, finally. So we do want to clean off our skin from the removal of metabolic waste products that come through our pores at night. We want to clean in the morning, and we want to cleanse off our skin at night to get our makeup off and to remove any environmental toxins so that all of these amazing products can actually benefit us. So make sure we do cleanse twice a day. Okay, so and how do people find you? How do they purchase the products? Do you have any special codes or anything like that you could share?
Yeah, I do think that we have a special code. I don't have the code right now, but I think you can add it on the description of the episode. But people can find us on our website, oneskin.co. Also on Instagram and TikTok, we are at oneskin.co. I really encourage people to subscribe to the newsletters because we share a lot of information about the science, the data behind the products. We invite people to test new products while we are developing them. And we also share a lot of information about longevity as a whole because, as you said, to have your best skin, you need to, take care of your health as a whole. So there is a lot of good content there, and I think everyone will enjoy. So hopefully.
Great. I'll have everything below. So just take a look and DM me with any questions and reach out to OneSkin. Okay, thanks, Dr. Catalina.
Thanks, Dr. Jen. This was wonderful.
Great.
If you're enjoying the Radiance Revealed podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, please give us a review, as that helps others to find this podcast. And if you want to connect with me, please visit my website, drjenhaley.com, or you can find me on Instagram at drjenhaley.
Hello, everyone. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility made for statements made by guests. Neither this podcast nor any of the information contained within it are a substitute for care by a qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you are looking for help in your journey, please seek out a qualified medical practitioner.